Garamagat Madrimois, Faltero et al. It's my great pleasure to be helping to moderate this discussion of two luminaries, both sides of the pond. Welcome Jerry Adams, as well as Congressman Brendan Boyle, representing the great city and area of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. And we have a very broad topic for today, which is defending progress as well as planning for the future. And one wonders if perhaps planning for the future is going to be one of the ways to best defend the progress that has been made. And I'll start perhaps with Mr. Adams. We sit here today very close to the 25th anniversary of the Good Friday Agreement. We've seen a potentially transformative election take place in the North, though an incompletion in terms of the full seating of government. We've seen a tremendous number of cultural and political and social changes across the entire island of Ireland. And of course, the world spins in other directions as well, and we've seen some of the special challenges that Brexit has wrought, the pandemic. And I guess with all of that as just a background, I wonder how you see priorities going forward. You think about the mapping of how to think of progressing the self-determination of the people of Ireland. What would be the ways in which you would view the initial priorities to bring that to fruition, as well as finishing unfinished business under the Good Friday Agreement itself?
Well, Gordon Margaret, morning August, Giadet Brandon, to my ancestor by Libsha, Iona, August a Kansler Sharkarja, and Shin. Thank you, Maureen, and hello, Brendan. And thank you, Brendan, for all the work that you have been doing for some considerable time. Well, first of all, change is not one event. Change is a process. It's like making peace. Peace is not one event, it's a process. And we have made huge progress, not least because of the efforts of folks in the United States, and particularly people from Irish America who have kept the faith with Ireland. But of course, for every piece of change that you try to bring about, there's resistance from some elements who fear change or who don't see change as being in their self-interest. And indeed, maybe change isn't in their self-interest, but it certainly is positive change. To bring in equality is in the self-interest of all of the people of the island of Ireland. So I think we can look back over the last 25 years and feel validated and vindicated, and particularly those who made the effort, who took the risks in the USA. I include President Clinton in that, and all the presidents since then. Incidentally, it's President Clinton's birthday today. So we can take hope from how far we have come, but the process is under huge threat, and the threat comes not just from those unionists who have set their face against change, but from the English government, the government in London. And we have seen them behaving in an absolutely disgraceful way. And I firmly believe that an English government should have no say in Irish affairs. The whole problem arises because they insist in interfering in our affairs. And the Good Friday Agreement has a peaceful means to resolve that by giving the people the responsibility and the chance to vote in a referendum. So I think defending the gains, trying to protect the Good Friday Agreement, but also planning for the future. And let's not for a moment leave the Irish government out of that, because the Irish government has a huge responsibility, indeed a constitutional obligation, to plan for the future. All the other bits will challenge us. Brexit, the protocol, the attempts to do away with justice cases and to bring in amnesty for British forces, all that will challenge us. But if we keep focused on the future, then we see our way through all of that. And now is the time, once again, for Irish America to come up to the plate and to defend the agreement, but also to plan for Irish unity in the time ahead.
And Congressman Boyle, on the heels of those comments, certainly following in the tradition of Senator Mitchell and the various U.S. presidents and the people of the U.S. who have played a role in support and influence over the years, you, of course, have been one of the current leaders in the Congress, along with the other members of the caucus, including recently supporting the EU and U.S. joint adoption of the support for the Northern Ireland Protocol. How do you see some of the ways in which both government and other major institutions, as well as people, ordinary citizens, can play a role in supporting the self-determination of the people on the island of Ireland as a whole?
Well, great, and thank you, Maura. Great to be with you, and it's also great to see you again, Jerry. It's been too long since I've been able to see you in person, but fortunately, the world is slowly but surely getting back to normal. I also just want to give a shout out to the Irish Echo. I first learned about these issues, obviously, from my father and mother and grandparents, but also it was because of getting the Irish Echo at our house every week in Philadelphia. And both my brother and I would, even as a very young age, follow things very closely. That was the early and mid 1980s back then. So now that I'm in Congress, or I guess I shouldn't say now, I've been there 8 years, have the opportunity to actually do something about it. It's not an opportunity that I hope it's not an opportunity I've let go to waste, and I certainly won't, much to the chagrin of some friends in London. In terms of how we move forward, look, here's hopefully a brief overlook of the next couple of years. I think things, frankly, are going to get more challenging with the British government. Liz Truss will very likely be the next British Prime Minister in a couple weeks. She has made commitments during this campaign to the most extreme elements of the far right in England. And it's very disturbing because while it was Tony Blair and the Labour government that, that negotiated what ultimately was the Good Friday Agreement, it pretty quickly was accepted as a sort of bipartisan achievement, the same way in the U.S. it is bipartisan support. You didn't see David Cameron or Theresa May make comments like, we're going to rip up the Good Friday Agreement. You are now hearing English politicians at that sort of talk. So that is very concerning. And I think that because she was originally a Remainer and seen as a more establishment type, she is sort of bending over backwards to pander to the most extreme elements. So I think that over the next couple of years, people like me, others on Capitol Hill, the administration, will have to continue to be as forceful as possible in defending the Good Friday Agreement, defending the rights of all people in Ireland, also disabusing that element in England of the notion that somehow they're going to dictate to the almost 2 million people in the North what their future is going to be. So that's over the next couple of years. But then at the same time, we do need to prepare for the inevitable referendum and have those conversations now. Fortunately, you already see that happening, I've noticed, in civic space. I want to see those of us in the United States step up and play our role in that, to make sure that we're as fully prepared as possible for that referendum and, candidly, what I hope will be a successful result. I wrote an op-ed in the Irish Times last year talking about the work that I think needs to be done now, not just in Dublin and Belfast, but in London and Brussels and Washington, D.C., to make sure that we are as prepared as possible in dealing with the sort of practical realities.
Mr. Adams, you've called on a number of occasions for further attention to citizens' assemblies, to kind of follow on the thought that the congressman was just discussing, how to prepare for the potential eventual border poll. Certainly, we have some lessons that we can learn from how Brexit was carried out in terms of communication, and also another interesting model in Scotland. And I just wonder how you think the notion of assemblies can be best carried out to gather the voices of the disparate population on the island, as well as some of the voices that may be coming from the diaspora, not just in the US, but elsewhere. How do you see the way of really coalescing those voices to make sure we have the right result in the end?
Well, I support the notion of citizens' assemblies, and that is a forum in which citizens chosen fairly and on the basis of gender and the area from which they come together and plan out or discuss relevant issues. Now, it has happened on a number of occasions in Dublin. I attended quite a few of those. They dealt with issues like marriage equality. They dealt with a whole range of other neglected areas of social policy, and they were successful, and they're also popular. Now, the Irish government, at least the Taoiseach, and he will be out of that job quite soon, Micheál Martin, refuses to establish a citizens' assembly to discuss the future of the island, the plan. And I think that he's making a huge mistake by refusing to do that. But I think it is only a matter of time before that forum is established. And that will bring people together, as I have said, to tease out, to look at, to put up their concerns, their fears, to look at the positives as well as the negatives. And the president of Sinn Féin, Mary Lou McDonald, recently announced that Sinn Féin has established a commission into the future of Ireland. And it is setting up people's assemblies throughout the island, going into localities, inviting people in. The first one's in Belfast on October the 12th. And the intention is that once this commission is up and running in Ireland, that we would invite our friends across the diaspora to make their submissions also, to make written submissions, to do it by Zoom, to find other ways of impacting and helping us say. So it's the problem is the lack of democracy. Brendan touched on some of the issues that London are taking decisions on, and they will not take decisions in the interest of the people of Ireland. They will take decisions based upon their own interest, and that has to end. That's at the very crux, as I said in my opening remarks. That's the very crux of the problem here. So the Good Friday Agreement has given us, after decades of struggle, a peaceful way to bring about self-determination by these referendums. It would be absolutely ridiculous if we repeated the folly of Brexit by not preparing properly. So let's get on with the preparation. Let's raise our voices, asking the Irish government to do what it's constitutionally obliged to do. And incidentally, the Speaker Pelosi, the Chairman Richie Neal, Brendan Boyle here, and his colleagues across Capitol Hill have in London and in Dublin and in Belfast and on the border made it clear that they want to see the Good Friday Agreement fully protected and promoted. And that includes this essential need for a referendum on Irish unity. I also think, if I may say so, that the President Biden, made a very good call when he decided to appoint a special envoy, but the envoy has yet to be appointed. And I'm sure with all the issues that the President's grappling with, there's an explanation for that. But I think that would be a very good example to both the Irish and the British governments that the US administration takes its responsibilities seriously, as a co-guarantor or as a guarantor of the Good Friday Agreement, along with the two governments in London and Dublin.
And Congressman, to that point about some of the actions that Speaker Pelosi and others have taken to speak out about the willingness to negotiate a special trade arrangement with the UK in light of ongoing dynamics, that's just one example. Are there other things that you can see tangibly coming up in the Congress or otherwise in the administration's policy that might add another voice to the unification and the defense of the Good Friday Agreement dynamic?
Yeah, I was with Jerry referenced the trip that Nancy led a small group of us. I was with her on that trip and standing next to her as we physically walked from Derry into Donegal to show that there is an open, seamless border, and we wanted to protect that. We did it over objections in some quarters. That same trip, we went to 10 Downing Street and delivered that very clear message. We've been consistent now for 6 years, since June of 2016, that while it was the right of the people of the UK to decide whether they would be members of the European Union or not, they do not have the right to rip up the commitments made under the Good Friday Agreement. And certainly we would not pursue any US-UK free trade agreement on the heels of any British government violating the Good Friday Agreement. We've been very consistent in that for, as I mentioned, for now, over 6 years. And I don't see any change in that coming soon. So we'll continue to deliver that message clearly. I've been on BBC a number of times, also delivering that message whenever we've had envoys from the UK coming over here. I've delivered it, the Speaker has, and so as the administration. As we move forward, over the course of the next several years, I think also, bringing into that, kind of a larger conversation about, all right, what will trigger the inevitable referendum or border poll, and making sure there's no foot dragging in terms of that happening. Right now, I observe that I would say society in the North is roughly 40-40-20. It is the numbers are pretty even. The recent election results for the Assembly bear that out. And I'm very, personally interested in trying to show to the 20% who don't identify as strictly nationalist or unionist, they're disproportionately young people, maybe more secular. Some are interested in regaining their European identity. Some are maybe socially more liberal, even though they're from a unionist background. I want to show them that those of us in the United States who happen to be part of the diaspora, we're not your enemy. We're your friends. And we want to work with you. We want to make sure that you have a bright future as well. You have very much been forgotten for decades by the British government, and frankly used time and time again. So I think that's an important group that we in Irish America have to reach out to show that we are sincere and that we come in friendship and want to have a good relationship with you.
And Mr. Adams, to that end, would you see as potential bridge building exercises more determined discussion about how healthcare would work, how education across borders would work upon unification, those sort of bread and butter issues that may not touch upon the sort of the older legacy sectarian notions, but ones that were perhaps highlighted a bit during the pandemic?
Well, yes, it just makes sense. Up until the Good Friday Agreement, the two states, and Ireland is a very small island, faced away from each other. So there was no joined up health service, education service, welfare service, agriculture, all the other issues. The Good Friday Agreement ushered in an All-Ireland zone and was, as Brendan has said, the border, it was seamless. It didn't exist in terms of all of the necessary all-island measures that were required. Now, obviously, much more could be done. The pandemic was a huge example of that. That there was cooperation across the island, to put it right. It is very understandable when people come around to decisions about their future. They want, or at least some of them want, to know how that will affect them. Others of us want self-government, want self-determination, because we believe that we have the wit and the intelligence to rule ourselves better than anyone else. But some people mightn't be from that particular political persuasion. So if they have concerns about health service, and Sinn Féin believes in public services, we believe that citizens have rights. We want to see a citizen-centred, rights-based society. So in the modern era, to have rights, that is the right to a health service, that is the right to access to education, that is the right to a clean environment, and so on and so on. So all of those issues should be debated out. And incidentally, in civic society, that debate's ongoing. Féile an Phobal is the biggest community festival in Ireland, had 70 debates and discussions. About 30 of them were all about these issues, about the future, about unity, and so on. Those folks that Brendan quite rightly exemplified as perhaps being seeing themselves as European, that issue will be resolved. The European Union have made it clear that if people in the north vote for Irish unity, the entire island will go immediately into the European Union. That also will deal with the Brexit complications. That also will deal with the protocol complications. So, and all of this, it comes back again and again and again. If you have a small island population of about 6 million people, clearly by cooperating together, by developing harmonious ways to work together, by bringing in policies and protocols that suit the particular needs of the people of the island, that will benefit everyone. And you know, I'm an Irish Republican, so my credo is the proclamation which sets out the broad principles of the Republic. And that's the type of society I want to see, as I said previously, where men and women are treated as citizens and where society is built around their needs. If you have a child with a disability, that child should have exactly the same rights and entitlements as anyone else. And that's the type of future we need to be building. Those folks who are unionists, the ones that are politically and ideologically committed to the union, okay, fair enough. You mightn't change their minds, but all of the unionist parties, bar one, have all committed themselves to the Good Friday Agreement. Some of them did it reluctantly and so on. So we would expect, therefore, that they would accept the outcome of a referendum in the same way as I will accept the outcome of a referendum. But leaving aside the politically committed, there are numerous people who are culturally unionists who are looking for a home, who are looking for a better future, who don't like Brexit, who don't like Boris Johnson, who are concerned about who the next Prime Minister in England is going to be and what they're going to come up with, who are concerned about the far right type of Little Englander mentality that now permeates through Downing Street. And all of those people can be persuaded on all of these issues, and not least because we have enjoyed the last 25 years. I know there have been exceptions and it's regrettable that people have died, but you know, what we have enjoyed by dint of the will of the people is a peace process which has endured, and we want that to continue.
Great. Well, thank you both very much for this very dynamic and lively discussion. I've been told that we are a minute or two over. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. And thank you all in the audience and attendance.
Thank you, Maureen. You can tell March you can have his break. And Brendan, give my regards to your parents.
Thank you.
Your family. And thanks for all your
pleasure.
more.
Slán go fáil, slán fáil.
Slán
Cormaigh,
láta.
Cormaigh.
If you met him marching on or dark social